Gabriel, oh Gabriel, I welcome you to the house of Draculia, home to well good movies, Halloween extravaganza. You may be frightened, you may be scared, or even horrified, but do not fret. To survive the experience, all you have to do is follow the voice of Mr. Oscar.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Ooh, hello and welcome to Well Good Movies, the podcast that gives you the movies hellishly worth watching, especially when there's bumps along the way. I'm your host, the devil incognito, David Oscar, and I'm joined by my co-host, who is only here because he sold me his soul for a donut, and it was scrumdiddlyumptious. It's Craig McDonald. Hello, Craig.
Is that an unintentional fat joke?
Hey, I would sell my soul for a donut sometimes, so no.
Okay, I mean, it's ironic you bring that considering I'm really angry at Tesco at the moment because they've changed the supplier for donuts and just they're bad now.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I like that theming of just like, I'm glad you brought that up because here's who I'm angry at this week. Here's the business that has offended me.
Yeah, this episode is sponsored by Tesco. F*** you, Tesco.
Sponsored by Tesco, where you get shit donuts. Don't go there for your trick-or-treat treats. And I thought I would just close out the chapter on the Simpson Halloween-themed openings I've had throughout all of these Halloween horror episodes. So the circle is now complete in that sense.
Very much like a donut.
Yeah, exactly. And like a donut, it's, all things come around, and it's been quite the time. I don't usually bring politics onto the podcast.
Oh, God.
But the fact that we are recording this, and when this is released, there will be another Prime Minister on the day that the other Prime Minister has left. I've got to ask, Craig, are you in line for the next Prime Minister? Because at this stage, it could be anyone.
How dare you call me Tory? How genuinely offensive.
Hey, I'm just saying it could be from anywhere. You know, people are saying it could be a lettuce at this stage.
I mean, yeah, if there's anyone going to bring us onto the tip of the iceberg. Boom, bang.
Terrible.
But yeah, it's actually quite spectacular to just watch the entire chaos devolve. Especially considering that it's been one of those weeks where I think I saw the chaos unfolding and went to myself, well, that's not good news, but I think it's going to weather a bit. I don't think it's going to be an immediate resignation. Nope. Literally today it happened. I'm like, oh, all right. Okay.
Anyway, we've had some fun times over the course of our Halloween horror month, in which we've been talking all about horror and Halloween themed movies for the entirety of October, and now it's come to this thrilling end with this episode, which is our specific Halloween special, as it's out on Halloween, which is very exciting. And we have with us two guests which are absolutely perfect for this episode. We are all here dressed up as well. Obviously, this is through the medium of audio, but if you go check out our socials, then you can go see the fun costumes that are put on display in this recording session. We knew that would be a challenge that was set to us, especially with some of the guests that we have. So let's get to introducing them, because they've joined us on Halloween specials before, so they are no strangers to this podcast. So first off, we have writer, singer, and all-round creative, it's Shelley Taylor. Hello, Shelley.
Hello, you all right?
It's been some time. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, was it Little Miss Sunshine was the last one, wasn't
Yes, yeah. So Craig's just happy you're not bringing an Adam Sandler movie with you. We've had many an argument since on the podcast in which Craig's like, you made me watch Jack and Jill, and I'm like, that was Shelley as well as me.
Oh, are we not here to talk about Who Be Halloween?
We've done that.
Oh.
That's already been covered, don't worry.
I did that one.
Yes, and I don't think you made it through it, did you?
No, I didn't watch the whole film.
You turned it off after 10 minutes.
No, 30 minutes.
30 minutes, I apologize.
So
I had more respect for you.
So we'll get to our other guest as well, which is drag artist Lucy Fur joining us once more. Hello, Lucy.
Hello. Hi.
Once again, it's been a bit of time, much like Shelley, and it's been quite some time since we've both had you on. We always enjoy having the chaos that comes with both of you, especially after the crazy friendship you formed all that time ago in the Valentine's episode.
The Valentine's one.
Is the Sycorax still around? Is
Always. It's always with us.
It's whenever we're together, we conjure.
It's like a state of mind.
It's like this film in which you're like reading with like a dress that they used to wear and it starts filling up or something. But yes, it's great to have you both back on. And like I said, we've had a lot of fun in the past. And yeah, it's crazy that both of you have been on. The last time you were both on was both separately as well. So Shelley was talking about a very different film with Little Miss Sunshine. Lucy, you also joined us for Pudsey the Dog, the movie. Well, I would say we've put you through hell, but then you also give us 50 Shades. So it's just like Shelley has the Adam Sandler stuff and the bad rom-coms, but then you also have the bad rom-coms, Pudsey, and 50 Shades of Grey.
It was so bad. I can't believe you made me watch that film.
So it's been some time, as I mentioned. So obviously a good time to catch up. So first off, Shelley, obviously you've been very busy in a lot of theatrical productions. So tell us about what you've been up to recently.
Yeah. So, God, it was back in March. We did Kinky Boots at the Octagon Theatre in Yeovil. And then literally a week later, we started rehearsals for Legally Blonde, the musical, which finished on Saturday, just gone. Well, the 15th, as it was. So, I'm really, really burnt out. And I just need to lay down for a couple of weeks. I might just sleep through Halloween. I can be dead for Halloween.
And what's the production company that's a part of?
It's called YAOS, Yeovil Amateur Operatic Society.
Ah, fun.
They're doing Anything Goes next, and then Into the Woods, which I love. Yeah.
And it's like very ambitious ones, especially the first was, I assume there'd been ones before you've been part of it, but Kinky Boots is quite a ambitious one to do for like an amateur production as well.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, they've been going since like something like 1915.
Wow. Or
something crazy like that. So yeah, they're really well established, and everyone who comes to see it is like, I can't believe that was an amateur production. And I'm like, I know, I can't believe I didn't get paid for that either. But yeah, it's so much fun to be a part of, but I need a bit of a rest now.
Yeah, know that feeling with different work and projects and traveling. It's a tiring time, and yeah. Well, I bet you're excited for the ones that are coming up. I think Lucy definitely probably is eyeing up maybe Into the Woods. It's a good chance for a spooky witch character in there.
Oh yes,
to take over the role of Meryl Streep.
You can commute to the West Country every day, right? 3 times a week for rehearsals.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I actually, I once saw in the local newspaper here, they were advertising for a new witch at Wookie Hole. You could have done a great job at that, Lucy. It was like, must have a great cackle, and that was basically it. That was all you needed.
Honestly, I think I missed my call in there.
I'm just wondering if part of it will be like, oh, I'm ready now, I'm in my witch gear, or if there'll be other times in which they just turn up and Lucy's just like, get out of my house, get angry at children, just they have a cigarette in your hand, just piss off.
Not now. Not the witch of Wookie Hole now.
Not even ready for work yet.
We look forward to today talking all about some fun Halloween themed goodness with our movie. So let's get into what we're talking about today and how we came to talk about it. So Craig, can you let the audience know, for anyone who isn't caught up, what led us to today's film and what is said film?
So last episode, we had the mostly stop motion with a little bit of CGI horror film based for meant for kids in Paranorman, which ended up leading us nicely on to the mostly live action, little bit of stop motion, horror fun, mostly for adults with weird sort of edits to try and make it family friendly, even though I don't understand why you'd even attempt that with this film. But the film that we're discussing in today's episode is Beetlejuice.
Adam and Barbara are recently deceased. They were happy to haunt in peace until the new residents moved in. To rid themselves of these pesky pests, they call on the ghost world's leading bioexorcist.
It's showtime. Attention, Kmart shoppers. I'm back. You want somebody out of the house? I want to get somebody out here. But I want out. For good.
You two have really screwed up. I want Beetlejuice out of the picture.
You guys really are dead.
Nightshades promise. Spirits try. To the living, let now the dead, shall we, come alive. That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't.
Say it again.
Nice try. There's enough bad things going on before I have to summon that person forward.
That's why none of us dressed as him, because, surprise, once we've mentioned it 3 times, he's going to pop up in the episode.
And then I'd have to do my voice.
At the top there, we also mentioned the movies hellishly worth watching, especially when there's bumps along the way, as it's our Halloween episode here. So just to tease the audience at home and our guests, what are your thoughts on this movie?
So I do have to question, given that there's a narrative across these 3 episodes of the Halloween episode, that I'm just going into a deeper and deeper and deeper depression to the point that we've gotten here. Why on earth is this week's film a film that not only shows so much like death, but has so much discussion about death and suicide, but also different types of suicide, to the point of somebody literally scribbling out in the note how they're going to kill themselves? Why the hell did we think that was a good idea, David? What was going on? What the hell is anything anymore? I can't take this!
He's falling. No, plummeting.
And this is why I invited Shelley and Lucy on, the perfect guests to drive Craig's like sanity up.
I feel like this is the only film I've ever seen, apart from like All Dogs Go to Heaven with like Carface, that has like a murderer dog in it.
Why did the dog kill them? That was going to be my opening question. What the hell?
We will get to that. Don't worry, Lucy. We'll get to it. So, yeah, today we are talking about Beetlejuice from 1988, directed by Tim Burton. So we'll get on to our guest thoughts about the film, my own thoughts, and Craig can expand a bit more. So onto the film itself then. As I mentioned, this was out in 1988. It is directed by Tim Burton. The writers include Michael McDowell, and then you've also got Warren Scarron and Larry Wilson, who are also credited with story and screenplay. This film has got quite a big cast, especially when you look back now in terms of who appeared in this. You've got an early appearance of Alec Baldwin. You've also got Gina Davis. Annie McEnroe appears at the beginning of this film. Of course, you've got Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, Catherine O'Hara as Delia, and then you also got Jeffrey Jones as Charles, and Winona Ryder as Lydia, or in this case, Lucifer as Lydia in this episode, and Glenn Shadix as Otho. So this film is very much known for, its kooky visuals, its style, also its music as well. There's a lot of sequences and songs that have become famous.
And there's a musical.
Yes, which is well timed as well. So yeah, there is Deo, the Banana Boat song, which makes an appearance in this film, and also Jump in the Line, which is the Shake Shake Sonora song, both making appearances in this. And as Shelley said as well, they have made a musical adaptation of this film in recent years as well. And as I mentioned before, like I said, another infamous one for Tim Burton, which we've discussed on the podcast before, usually begrudgingly for Craig, who is not a fan. Tim Burton's obviously other sort of big directing roles in the past has been the likes of, especially around the time of this film, we had things like Batman. He had his like big sort of start with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and then Edward Scissorhands, which we talked about before. And then later on, he did things like Big Fish. Obviously, he's well known for Batman Returns as well. But yeah, this was one of like his first sort of big movies, as well as Nightmare Before Christmas. But that one he sort of just wrote, didn't actually direct that one. Yeah, so this one has really sort of like made its way into pop culture through its visuals. There's obviously been a long-awaited sequel, which is now meant to be in production, but it is one of those films in which it's been like years in which they've discussed it. But people like Michael Keaton, Tim Burton have said that they are up for it. Tim Burton is currently also got his series based on the Addams Family, which is all about Wednesday Addams, coming out at the moment, and which is perfectly timed for Halloween. So yeah, there's a lot of good reasons to discuss this film, as well as the connection we had to the last episode. We've talked before about horror films, obviously from the past. You know, you guys talked about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and we talked about Trick or Treat. So there's a lot of themes there, like loving the kind of like theatrics of Halloween and trick-or-treat films, but also like traditional horror, spooky things like witches and curses, all that kind of stuff. This is a different kind of Halloween film in terms of embracing some of the kooky visuals and the costumes, all that kind of stuff. How do you guys usually vibe with a film like this, with, you know, your sort of gothics or more dark dramatic sort of films, or even like dark comedies, I guess?
I love that it goes full sort of B-movie visuals, and that you've got, you know, the dark and the black and white, but then also kind of like luminous green and a lot of bright colors that are sort of synonymous with Halloween as well, like your oranges and your greens and your reds and things like that. So in terms of the visuals of the film, I really like it. And it's just stupid as well. I love a stupid comedy. Yeah,
I think there's like stylistic choices made with like the sandworms and stuff like that, and the ghosts, that make it like it would be dated if that was different, but because it's like that style, there's like a very distinct style, that it doesn't become dated.
It's aware really of itself, like looking.
It's just a very like interesting aesthetic, and I really enjoy it. Like, I think this is Tim Burton when he was good. This is, I think, his second film. And I think it was like downhill from sort of here on.
Thank you.
I'm really not a fan of Tim Burton. I think
That was going to be my next question, yeah.
So, right, you would think me being like, I'm literally dressed as Lydia right now, and like I had this outfit ready, like that's the kind of person I am. The room I'm in is black and white stripes all over. You can't see because it's facing the other way, but it is. You would think I'd love Tim Burton, but he's just sort of claimed this aesthetic that belongs to everyone, like this Victorian, like gothic, malnourished thing. And then he made it racist by being like, I don't think black people fit into my aesthetic. And I'm like, black people can't be Victorian and malnourished? Like, are we joking? Like, they can't be ghosts? What are you on about? So, yeah, I'm really not a fan of Tim Burton because of that. And because I think he gets credit for like everything good that's in his films, when it's like other people do jobs in his films. It's the same I have the same thing with Joss Whedon. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I don't think he's to blame for how good it is. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like
I hate Joss
other
Whedon.
people.
He's a human being.
Yeah, no, I think that, and that happens a lot with like Star Wars and stuff, especially. There's like one of the people involved in it now, they'll be like, oh, Dave Filoni is like the god. He is like the master of all of Star Wars, just because he was involved in like a lot of the animated stuff and he was like a kind of protege of George Lucas. But there's projects which he's not even involved with, or he's just been a consultant, in which he's like, oh, he's done such a great job. And you're like, you do realize he didn't direct or write that, you know, and this, a similar thing does happen with Tim Burton in terms of, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas being one of the biggest examples. You know, that was, you know, directed by Henry Selick, who then went on to do Coraline, etc. And that's why then a lot of people be like, oh yeah, Coraline, that, you know, Tim Burton film. It's like, no, it's not a Tim Burton film.
That's just people being stupid.
Yeah, that is really annoying. One of the things that really shapes the aesthetic of this film is the like special effects, and that wasn't Tim Burton, it was V. Neil. And yes, I'll admit he would have worked with her to get that aesthetic, but she was the makeup artist, but like with the final say, with the makeup brush in her hand. She is to blame for how good this film is.
And Bo Welsh as well, doing production design, married to Catherine O'Hara. So obviously,
Shelley, what's your experience or track history with Tim Burton? Are you a fan? Or?
Marmite, kind of. I hated like Corpse Bride, and see, I tend to like the performances in it. So I like Sweeney Todd, but then I think that's just because I like Sweeney Todd, you know?
It's just a relatively faithful adaptation of a very strong stage show.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that I like Tim Burton, it's that I like Stephen Sondheim, you know? So yeah, I think he attaches his name to a lot of talented people, and then, you know, doesn't shy away from taking all of that credit. So I would have to agree with everyone. Beetlejuice is one of my preferred Tim Burton vehicles.
Yeah, he does tend to be one of those directors where, you know, it's kind of like the good and the bad, which a lot of people will see. You know, I guess in the past, you know, me and Craig had talked about before, like, you know, I like him as a director. And I'm not just doing this. Craig is definitely thinking this in his mind now, like, oh, I'm going to call him up on this. But I think in the past we've talked about things like Edward Scissorhands.
This is correct.
I'm a big Charlie and the Chocolate Factory apologist. I actually enjoy that film.
Yeah.
As mad as people think that is, I think it's just a lot of what works with Tim Burton works within that film, and Roald Dahl, who is obviously another problematic creator, but in terms of going for that like crazy, kooky, horror-esque kind of children's stories, I think it kind of works, but only as
it doesn't.
Works in what some of even the Dahl estate has said, which is like it's you know, Tim Burton does Roald Dahl. I don't necessarily see that film and go, oh, that's Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like a perfect adaptation. I think only really that's one of the specific examples of like only the book can really give you that. Yeah, I think that I appreciate him as a director, because even when it's the more mediocre films, then I still appreciate the originality, etc., or some of the bold choices he's going for. I even know my Dark Shadows, which I know again would be judged by a lot of people.
Werewolf. Woof woof.
Again, I think it is bad in that sense. I know, but again, I'm only saying that as like I don't think it's like awful in the sense that, well, I'll rephrase that. Helena Bonham Carter did an interview and they were like, oh, what do you think about this being like based on this like awful, this soap opera? And she was like, well, it was an awful campy soap opera and that's what this is. So I'm like, it's an interesting one, because I'm like, he has done an awful campy soap opera. So it's kind of like it's intentionally bad in some ways. But again, I'm not like, oh, I actually really like that film. I just think that it's like, okay.
So far, everything you've said is logically consistent with things you've said in the past. I'm waiting for this flip that you've said is coming.
But yeah, I do. You know, I will admit that there's other times in which like I don't quite vibe with some of the choices that he makes or some of the things I hear behind the scenes. I think even Nightmare Before Christmas, the fact that he was meant to be going out with the writer of the film and like he wasn't like very happy. I can't remember her name right now, but she's like responsible for a lot of the great stuff you see with Sally, etc. And apparently he wasn't really happy with a lot of what she did. And I'm like, well, sorry, Tim, I would disagree. You know, I think that she, you know, added a lot to that film, and she like obviously provided the script, which turned it into such a great animated sort of classic. And you do hear about like a lot of like, dramas behind the scenes, bad comments like you mentioned, Lucy. And like I said, but I've never been one of those people who's like, oh, I'm a Tarantino person. I love Scorsese. I don't tend to attach myself to directors that much. I tend to just choose the individual films a bit more. So I've always struggled with the idea of saying like, oh, I'm a big Burton fan.
I'm looking forward to listening back to the episode we did Edward Scissorhands to listen to exactly what you say on this.
Well,
because I feel like you said something along those lines.
Possibly in the sense of like I enjoy him as a director.
The
but again,
majority of his films you do tend to latch on to. Like you even made me watch Alice in Wonderland, for crying out loud.
That I'll admit is not very good. Those types of films, though, again, I just find that there's certain aesthetics or certain choices which I could be like, at least I can enjoy that element to it. I think he's bringing something else to a project which other directors just, when you watch it, you're like, well, that just got completely lost. At least sometimes I think he manages to put something visually interesting, or like you said, Shelley, something out of the performers at least.
Or more often than not, I will just, when I think of a Tim Burton film, I'll actually picture, or not picture, like Danny Elfman's music rather than any lines in the film. It's more the aesthetic, and that's very much not really down to him. It's down to the team of creatives that he gets on board. So I guess the Burton team that he gets is good.
I'm just going to say my perspective against the originality thing again. I'm currently working with a couple of computer scientists to create what I call the Tim Burton AI algorithm, which is basically I'm going to start. We're basically going to take all the facets that I believe is just in a Tim Burton film, and we're just going to create 50,000 different films, which are all going to be, and everyone's going to be convinced they are Tim Burton, despite the fact that they are the Tim Burton AI algorithm. Because, like,
so you're awesome,
they for the most part, for the reasons we've already briefly discussed, the majority just look the damn same. I'm sorry, they all have like the same sort of like weirdly whitish vibe, and now I understand because of the comment that Lucy made. It's not just a case of not having black people in, it's also just incredibly whiting up the white actors he's chosen.
Hey, where are you going?
The one thing I would say is just sometimes the vibe that people say, oh, well, it's always like this dark gothic thing. Obviously with something like Sleepy Hollow, that can be quite true. The only thing I would sort of push against that, and I guess it kind of goes with what you were saying, Lucy, as well, of just, the aesthetic should appeal to you. But I think some people do get a bit more mixed up in the sense of like, oh, it's all dark, it's all gothic, it's all like very like goth vibes. But often, as Shelley was saying, etc., I think, it's that mirror, yes, that juxtaposition. There's always the like crazy kooky colors, and yes, there might be like a snowy background, there might be very pale characters, etc. But I think that's just kind of the ball Parky likes to play in, is just kind of imagine in these like sort of gothic characters within sort of more elaborate, colorful worlds. And maybe sometimes he might sort of drain the color a bit, but there's often times like rewatching Beetlejuice, it kind of reminded me in some ways, without going like, oh, well, all his films are these dark fantasy kind of stuff. Well, no, there's also Mars Attacks, for example. There's a lot of things I saw here which kind of, I think, led him to another kind of like B-movie comedy style film. So that is a big part of his sort of
I do
aesthetic.
like Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
It was originally going to be a like straight up horror film, and they had Wes Craven on to direct, and then they wanted to go in a different direction, I believe. So they went with Tim Burton and made it a horror comedy.
Whoa.
So yeah, we've talked a lot there about Tim Burton. So we touched as well on the animation and the visuals. But before we get to that, just generally, what are your guys' thoughts on Beetlejuice as a whole? How much do you think it works as a film? Is a lot of it based on kind of like nostalgia and on memories? Has there been any differences when sort of revisiting it? Lucy, what do you think?
Weirdly, I don't have nostalgia for this film because the first time I saw this film, I was an adult.
Okay.
So like the first time I saw it, I had like fresh eyes, and there's like, he's quite gropey. Like, I don't love that. I know that he's like the villain or whatever, but Beetlejuice is very like, there's a few times he grabs Gina Davis, and then he also like tries to marry a 16-year-old and he's clearly like way older than that. It's not great. But that being said, I do really enjoy it. I love the aesthetic. Alec Baldwin is just carved by angels in this film, and he is wearing trousers that just just grip his little bum perfectly.
He is a surprisingly attractive man in this film.
I've always thought Alec Baldwin was quite attractive, but this is just like peak. Like, he just looks like he could just pick you up and like throw you around. And Gina and Davis looks really good as well. Like, they are a stunning couple. And that's nice. That's just nice. Do you know what I mean? I'm just sat here looking minging, just watching telly, like, oh, this is nice. Pretty people, yeah.
I mean, they're not always pretty in this film.
Oh, no. And then they become hideous monsters. This is what I mean. Like, that bit, all the makeup and stuff, very just like for the 80s as well, just ingenious. And the way that there's like storytelling through the makeup, like you can tell how each ghost dies. And I kind of wish that we could see that with the main couple, but I guess I'm assuming they wanted us to, like, as an audience, relate to them a bit more. And if they were like ghostly looking, it would be like a barrier for that. I'm guessing that was a conversation that was had.
I guess they could have like just kept, not that they like were in the sea or anything, but they could have kept like, well, it wouldn't have been convenient to have them like wet all the time. But again, like, if it was they crashed in the sea, they could have had some seaweed on them or, something like that. Shelley, what's your overall thoughts? Is there a difference between any previous thoughts to it, to revisiting it, or are you similar to Lucy in which it's been more of a recent watch?
Yeah, watching it, I think I was early teen when I saw it for the first time, and it's got that very like early 90s. Obviously it was 1988, so this film's 1 year older than me. It's got that late 80s early 90s vibe about it, but also 80s B movie, which I really enjoy, those kind of like in a cult following sort of way. I always think that where they do visual effects
like stop
in
motion
reality,
sort of,
that's it, yeah, they always just age way better than CGI. So and there was a lot of that in the early 90s, which is why I think I enjoy films from that era so much still today, because it just puts me in that time rather than taking me out of it and going, oh, that's really bad. Yeah, the same as Lucy. Like, didn't enjoy the first sort of rewatch as an adult, going, oh wow, he really just wants to grab Gina Davis for almost half of his screen time. And
he has so little screen time as well.
Yeah
And he spends so much of it just groping Gina Davis.
Yeah.
And actually he only really spends, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes in that, like, if that, in that striped suit,
the famous suit, yeah, which is like an iconic image now. I feel like if anyone's wearing like pinstripe trousers, I'm like, oh, Beetlejuice trousers.
I think that's because that's what he's wearing in the cartoon.
Oh yeah, there was a cartoon as well. So we had the musical and there was a cartoon. Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about it is, like you said, Shelley, is that because it was out in 1988, and where we're talking again about this like Burton aesthetic and the vibes of his films, I was kind of always thinking, well, why is that always, I could always understand the appeal of it. There's always then those like goths, etc., or people who just like that aesthetic, but how is it preserved for so long, and why did it originally become popular? And then when I was watching this, I was like, oh wait, all of the 80s was based a lot on that. You look at animation, you had things like The Black Cauldron and Basil, The Great Mouse Detective. All of those films kind of went in a dark, spooky area. You look at the Don Bluth stuff, and you got things like Secret and Nim. A lot of then live action stuff. There was all this kind
very
of
dark.
Media was going very dark and gothic. So it kind of made sense that then this like kooky gothic guy turns up and Hollywood goes, oh, perfect, especially when they're making a Batman film. So it very much suited that. And so I think that it's just then he kind of like led the way in terms of that, because then that kind of trend really started in the 80s and carried on through the 90s. So it was like perfectly set for then. And I think that's why in a lot of ways that he has gone off a cliff in recent years, because he's almost one sort of like the trend has kind of almost then gone part away, and then he obviously where the digital sort of age has come in and he's doing more with CG, you just kind of lose that physical aesthetic, etc. So I think that, yeah, what's interesting about this is that it's kind of latching on to that kind of feeling of the 80s, 90s bridge, especially when, like, I had similar to you guys in terms of Batman Returns earlier this year. I kind of, like Beetlejuice, I hadn't really seen it since I was a kid, and I couldn't really remember much of it. And I watched Batman Returns, and loads of people loved that film. And again, as a Tim Burton, apologist or whatever, I was kind of like, this film is very horny and has some very questionable and strange stuff in it, and isn't really at all like a Batman film. And I feel that is kind of the case in Beetlejuice sometimes. It's not really a Beetlejuice film for, a large part of it. And there's a lot of that kind of like risque humor going on throughout it, which he kind of does enjoy, which is not, like I said, one of the elements I enjoy as much. I guess it kind of works in something like Mars Attacks, in which is kind of like purposely like playing on that kind of like B-movie trope. But yeah, I don't think it works when it's as creepy as it is here.
It's also it's a PG.
Oh no, isn't it 15?
It's the original cut is a 15, and then there's a family edit to make it PG. Because I had this issue when I was trying to find the film to watch, because there's two versions of it on Amazon Prime. And when I messaged David to specify this, his response was, and I quote, "It's on Netflix, isn't it?"
Speaking of Netflix, Beetlejuice was the first ever DVD that Netflix sent out in 1998.
Oh.
What?
Hey kids, back in my day, Netflix used to send the DVDs through the post.
That's actually interesting as well, because again, Beetlejuice is one of those films, like you said, it's of the days of video rentals and stuff like that. So you always remember seeing the video and the DVD in shops. And I think that when I was thinking about, why was this film even made? A 90-minute horror comedy. What a weird thing to create. But then you look back and you think, well, no, that was a big thing at the time. You had these very situational comedies. You had things like Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, and just a lot of like situational comedies which sort of relied on these kind of like humorous situations, and it kind of fits that vibe, similar to like how they then later made Addams Family and things like that as well.
High concept, stupid execution kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so grab those cassettes and rewind them again, because it's time for VHS Corner, except not really, because we've already had some of the facts splashed out throughout the episode so far. In a little bit of a twist, the majority of us today actually have some facts to bring forward. So we've asked both Shelley and Lucy to bring us one fact. We've had Shelley's. So Lucy, what fact about the film would you like to share with us?
They didn't want Catherine O'Hara. They wanted other people first, and one of the people in the running was Goldie Hawn, who I think would have been great.
Wow.
Death Becomes Her-esque.
Exactly. Like as I was watching it today, I was keeping that in mind, and there's like quite a few lines where she's like, "I need to express myself." I was like, I could see Goldie Hawn doing that just beautifully.
Very true. Shelley, yours was the Netflix, the first DVD they sent out, you said, yeah?
Yeah, back in 1998. So 10 years after the film came out.
So a couple of things from me then. So the first one is about Michael Keaton and his relationship with this film, because despite the title character only having exactly 14 and a half minutes worth of screen time, Michael Keaton has actually said that this is his personal favorite performance that he has ever done. And I think part of that comes down to the fact of like the chaotic tone of the performance. 90% of the lines that he had were improvised, and he was also told to give Beetlejuice an air of the fact he has lived through all time periods, but also no time periods. So this inspired very much like the look and the chaotic nature of his hair, like the makeup they go for, as well as just his overall attitude and speaking performance. So yeah, that is one that will always forever live on with him, and that also explains why he's so keen to do a second Beetlejuice. So coming on then to Tim Burton, who, believe it or not, was not as keen as certain aspects of this film. So first of all, he didn't think that the Deo sequence was was actually funny and thought that they would fall flat with audiences, but he was proven wrong by test audiences and the audiences who absolutely loved that scene, myself included. And also the original name was banded about across studios, and he suggested a joke name that the studios were contemplating for a while, which also just made him panic. That name being Scared Sheetless. And finally, just to go away from the horror and the dark and depressing, and also to try and cheer me up a little bit, a romance story coming from behind the scenes of this horror comedy. So Catherine O'Hara did indeed marry the production designer Bo Welsh. And they first met on this film. According to Welsh, Tim Burton said that he should ask her out near the ending of the filming. And he said, and I quote, "It didn't even occur to me that I was supposed to talk to actors. But since Tim told me to, I did. And then we dated and then we're married. And here we are today." So very lovely outcome for them all. And that's everything. That's everything from me. So any facts that we've shared at all today that we're intrigued about and we want to sort of discuss a little bit more? Like anything you found particularly interesting?
I find it interesting that Tim Burton probably takes credit for Bo and Catherine's entire marriage as well.
I mean, probably.
Like he does everything else.
It's like, hey, you should ask her out. Really? Yeah. Okay.
Scared Sheetless would have been a funny name for it.
I think it would have also been slightly more apt, considering that even though Beetlejuice is obviously... Because for a while, I had no idea why the film was called Beetlejuice when his name was... Beetlejuice. Yeah. Juice. Yeah. So I was like, this is a bit weird. And then obviously it's just that weird game of charades, which just gave it the name. And I was like, okay, this seems a bit of a weird, tenuous link. So it makes sense that they were sort of concerned about names of the film. And Scared Sheetless would have been amazing. But I think for like 1980s audiences, being the prudes that they are,
I can kind of see it as just like a working title. I don't know if it was just that kind of thrown together attitude, maybe, because thinking back to when I did my short film, The Waiting Room, which is similar vibes of like a character goes on to like the in-between moment between life and death sort of thing. And that I was like, there was a leaflet in the film.
I can't help but feel that description of your short film is going to really disappoint people who are now expecting something much closer to like the chaotic nature of Beetlejuice.
No, it's not. Also, I mean, it's the complete opposite. So the fact in that film, similar to how they have this book, there's like a leaflet I had in the film, which was just called like "Oops, You're Dead," and like I just couldn't think of what the film should be called. So for a while, it was called "Oops, You're Dead," and I was like, I didn't like the title, but I was like, it will do for now as a working title. But then eventually I was just like, let's just go simple. But so I kind of maybe see it in that vein. But yeah, it's interesting how you'll have that a lot with either when they're just like the secret names, but also just, yeah, the working titles will kind of just be something that maybe they've thrown together. But I don't know, maybe Tim Burton did think it was a good idea. I wouldn't put it past him. But yeah, Michael Keaton, I think, yeah, a lot of people have heard about the fact that, this is one of his most favorite roles, and I think you can see that in the sense that he's having so much fun. And it is surprising that Tim Burton didn't go back and work with him again, considering he worked with him on Batman. And I guess you could already see that kind of vibe of like, oh, this is a charismatic character actor. It's like what he later found with Johnny Depp. So I'm surprised that he didn't sort of turn up again, and I can see why he had so much fun with this. And I'm surprised that it didn't lead to more work like Beetlejuice in terms of him playing sort of zany characters. Instead, he played Jack Frost and more like
I low-key enjoy that film.
I do as well, but it's just the fact that he is playing Michael Keaton in that film. So he then tended to play the same character time and time again. So, but like you guys were saying, the fact that there's this sequel like being talked about, I'm like, I don't know how it would work. One, in terms of the logistics of Beetlejuice coming back, and like you said, whether that character could work in this day and age in terms of like, if he's being a creep again, is somebody just going to call him out on that straight away, or
is he going to get Me Too'd?
Potentially.
I was thinking this literally when I was watching it today. There's so much that we see that I'd love to see more of like the like Ghost World, and they've got like obviously this like office kind of system, and I want to see more of that. And I'd love to see more of the ghosts that are like the football player ghosts, where they're like, I don't think we made it out of the crash, coach.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah. I think that's brilliant. Like, I wanted to see more of that, and every time we were sort of cutting away from that to go back to the house, I was like, "Oh, great! It's Otho again. Wonderful."
It would also be cool to have main characters who they do actually just embrace like the way in which they die, insofar as like their appearance. So just throughout, you get like something quite visually interesting. So, probably not as horrific as the guy who was burned to death by like a cigarette fire, because that was haunting.
Yeah, I think that world is interesting. Like you say, it's almost when you see other films and you can kind of go like, oh, that's where this was starting to become born. So it was almost as if like Tim Burton was going, oh, this is what I'm really interested in. And then you have to sort of flip back and forth between the worlds instead of like constantly being in that world, which he would sort of later do. So, and the fact that they put so much effort into it, the fact that it could have just been a kind of like standard like hell looking place or a kind of creepy looking place, but there was such a distinct visual aesthetic to it. And I think something like the Sand Snake is a very Tim Burton type drawing, in which you see like that kind of snake pretty much in Nightmare Before Christmas. But also just then the reception workers and stuff. I was kind of like watching it, feeling like I was watching like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon or something, in which they've just got like random green skin and pink hair and stuff like that. It seemed very zany and cartoon-esque in that sense. So that's why, like you said, Lucy, it made sense that it later become a cartoon, because that part of it is so cartoon-esque. And I think, yeah, I think that you could have had a lot more in that world. I'm not sure if it would have worked if it was just necessarily like, oh, here's a bunch more of these like crazy characters. I think, like you said, the football team, ones like that work the best because they're kind of still people, but they just look like zombies. Whereas I think we had enough of those kind of jokes of like, here's a visually interesting person, like a person with a shrunk head and a person who's like smoking and turned into a skeleton because he's just singed and burnt. You know, I think that those all work very well, and you have as much of that as you need.
Juno Birch.
I think all of it is very like catchy, almost like visually catchy. It's like, I remember that. I remember the black and white stripy suit, like that just sticks with you. The black and white stripy sandworms. The bit where they open the door and the green light comes through, and then the green light is just on Winona Ryder's eyes. Like, that is imprinted in my soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got this knack for like really making iconic aesthetic moments. It is the only thing he's good at, but like that is like what Tim Burton's very good at. And there's so many of them through this film.
Even like the fashion, like Catherine O'Hara wearing like a pair of gloves as a headband and stuff.
So iconic.
Yeah.
So iconic.
And I guess, yeah, you're right. It's like the contrast between this like gorgeous like mid-century home and then what they turn it into, like a more what you would call modernist. Like, I quite like what they did with
what they do. Like, that house, they just like, they seem to put like textured spray paint on everything. And it was like, it looked like concrete, but it's like, I know that's wood because that was wood earlier, and now it just has a different texture. So they just sort of textured wallpaper. It was horrible. It looked awful.
It did kind of look like a haunted house or something.
Yeah, it's the clash between that and some of the like garish like rugs they put out. I think just really got me. Although I will say I give massive props to the props. Specifically, I think the sort of when they all get shrunk into the model village, I thought that village looked really, really good, especially sort of the graveyard areas. I really like that.
The layers of the
when they dig
grave.
Yeah. It looks so good.
And also just the random weird like hell whorehouse as well. Just I don't know how else to describe it.
I like even the just the stupid moments, like the fly, where he's like beckoning the flies down into and the fly's like, it just makes no sense, and that's why I love it. I'm like, yeah, okay.
One I love is the character is a Juno, and it's like the old lady who's like their I don't know what you
She's
call it.
smoking through.
The civil
Yeah,
servant.
yeah, the gap in her neck, because I was just like, it takes a while for you to notice, and then you're just like, oh wow, like when the smoke is literally like enveloping her, especially because again, there's so many characters like that in film and television, which have always got a cigarette in their hand, and yeah, it just works incredibly well, especially like you said, Lucy, later on with the football team, when she's like, will you guys get out of here? And they're like, where's the change room? She's like, seriously, a changing room? And she's like, just haunt the house. And I quite like that they play quite loose with the lore of this world, that they aren't like, you must do this, you must do that. I just like
There's
the fact,
rules,
you know, I'm glad that they're not too stringent about it, that the fact that they're just like, oh yeah, you should just assume that you're going to be on this earth for like 100 odd years, and yeah, why don't you just haunt them, get them out of there? You know, I like the fact that they're quite casual about it, so it feels more like a real lived in world rather than like the film going, right, this is this, this is this, this is this. You know, the fact that lady just takes it so casually just makes it more,
it's just another part of her every day.
Yeah, and that everyone has to kind of take that on board.
That's what I really love about it, is like the comedy of like, you've died and there's an afterlife, and that's all like really mind-boggling, but it is so boring and tedious, and it's like this office work and red tape. Yeah,
the DMV.
Like I love that idea. It's so stupid and so funny, and like I wish I think, honestly, if they were going to do like any sort of sequel or whatever, it should just be like a mini series, and it should just be, it shouldn't be about Beetlejuice. It should be about, the like agency and like what those people's
like
lives
a Better
up
Call
to.
Saul spin-off.
People in the waiting room. Yeah, like that kind of vibe. So it's like, oh, this is your caseworker. Like, there's so much you could do with that. Like the aesthetics and the jokes, and like, that's what I think it should be, rather than
Beetlejuice does Hawaii or whatever it is.
I like the fact that they make this impression that any haunted house is just a house in which the ghosts used to live there. Because I like the fact that the caseworker says, well, it's your house, get them out of there. You know, so I like the fact that they're not like, oh, it's not your house anymore. I like the fact that even the ghosts, etc., are on their side. They're like, yeah, this is your house. Because I don't know if it's just because there's been a lot like, I've been speaking to people a lot about like family dramas in terms of inheritance and stuff within the last year, but I was kind of like questioning like, well, what does happen to this house? Who sold it? Was it like that lady? Did she get their money? Like, was there,
there's like a secret subplot in my head that woman, because she was listing their house without their permission anyway, because she was getting offers. So I think she got them to change the will to her name, and then
planted a dog.
Train the dog to kill them. She knew what she was doing.
And so did that dog.
And then she flipped out.
Yeah, I would say the dog didn't know what he was doing if he didn't jump off the plank.
It's not just that. He stood there to veer so the car would veer out of his way and get in that situation. Then stood on the plank is just like, what I laughed, and then after doing that, the car plummets, and then he looks down and barks. He's like, "You're right, mate."
You know, again, I do enjoy this for the visuals, and I think that the stop motion works really well. It's very like Ray Harryhausen, as we were saying in the last episode with Paranorman. And you can see its influences there, and it works fantastically well. I think when I was watching, I was thinking, imagine if when he's running up the stairs and he hasn't got his head when he doesn't want them to go in the attic, if that was just a CG headless body, it wouldn't be interesting at all. You know, we had one of our previous guests, Johan, say, you know, he loves that about horror and kind of these kind of B-movie type films in which, you know, show me the paper mache is what he said, in which it's enjoyable to see that because it gives like actual weight and substance to it, and it's not just, you know, you're just watching something just generic, especially when something is just completely CG. It just takes away from the visual aesthetic of it.
I recently watched Morbius.
Oh, God.
Because I heard how bad it was.
It's Morbin time.
I love bad films. It was Morbin time. I was very excited. And it was like nothing on screen had weight. And there was a fight between two characters. And there was a load of us here. We like watched it and made fun of it. Franks, my friend, was like, I'm watching this, but all I can see is two people on like a green screen. Yeah. There's nothing like, there's no weight to it. I know they're not really there. Yeah, it feels very that. And that's what I think we won't get really anymore with big budget films. But like Beetlejuice is one of those, like, it's from an era where they would just make it physically rather than CG it, because CG was so expensive. And now it's cheaper to do it CG than it is to make it in real life.
It's also interesting with the characters and how they interact with the visuals and the type of performances we get, because again, I think one of the only problems I have again with the sort of like story of it is, you know, Beetlejuice turns out to be the villain, which like makes, you know, a lot of sense. But, you know, it's never really established what it means if he breaks free or anything like that. You know, we don't get a clear idea of what he's going to do or why it's bad that he's unleashed. And I think
one and then become president.
But it is typical of then Tim Burton that it does turn into a more like charming story in the sense it's focused actually on the ghosts more than Beetlejuice. So again, that might be just an expectancy thing of the film is called Beetlejuice. He's there on the front cover.
I feel like there's enough subtext to understand what will happen if he gets out. I mean, he calls himself what? The exorcist, right? So presumably if he just gets out, he just wants
the anti-exorcist.
He just wants to get out all humans, right? Yeah. I don't think it's something, and I actually quite like the fact that it's so underplayed in terms of like the stakes. I think everything they do already emphasizes why him just getting out was a bad idea. I don't think the story needs to play it up that much. But I think there is enough there by what we're given to understand why it would be a bad idea.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, I guess that does kind of back up what I was saying earlier about not being too strict with the rules about the lore of the afterlife, etc. I guess it's just I was just surprised on the balance of characters that, you know, you had so much emphasis on the two main ghosts, and I like that. I like that, you know, it's similar to Edward Scissorhands in the sense that there's this charming story at the core of it, and that, you know, it's about this couple that haven't got a child and actually find like an adoptive daughter in some way. And then the end of the film in which she's dancing, etc. It's quite a nice sort of freeing moment for her, I guess, in that way.
It is still very, like, the parents just don't care. Yeah, they're giving her to the ghosts at the end, pretty much.
I mean, obviously, it's a stepmom, and she's like classic stepmom that doesn't give a crap, and then classic indifferent 80s dad as well. So.
Oh my god, that guy, the actor, he has been done for a bunch of sex crimes.
What is this? I was promised like a fun conversation about this film.
Yeah.
Then you invited us.
But to go back to Catherine O'Hara, I think even though we were saying earlier about the fact that was it Goldie Hawn was originally meant to play?
Catherine O'Hara was like one of the last people on the list. Oh. Yeah, but Goldie Hawn's my favorite one. I wouldn't have minded her.
I do really love Catherine O'Hara though, because again, I think obviously, you know, a lot of people will know her from Home Alone, but I think that again, these type of roles is where she's really able to sort of like play with the characters and show her kooky side. The fact that, you know, she's a voice in Nightmare Before Christmas as well, and she like voices like the little witch character in the Oogie Boogie's little henchman, I think is, you know, shows her singing ability and like the, you know, her voice talents, which she's been able to do as well. But I think it's surprising to me that she is the stepmom, because in the film you almost look at her and think, oh, she could actually be, you know, Winona Ryder's mum. But I think she just has a lot of like funny, great moments. She obviously like at first kind of carries that kind of Banana Boat song. But even the moment where like they first arrive and like her artwork like pins her against the wall and she's like, you know, and like just the way she reacts to things, I think you just get a lot off her performance.
I do not want to die like this.
Yeah.
Have you seen my heart? It's scary.
Yeah. Which is kind of why I was kind of glad in a way that they didn't go with the typical like, oh, the parents die or something like that. I kind of like that they came around at the end, and even though, like you said, the ghosts become the parents of the child and they just abandoned their child, at least they got something out of it, that they were kind of, they settled with the house, they made it look more aesthetically pleasing and kind of used their strengths to influence their art and their books and all that kind of stuff.
They're doing what many people are doing these days, which is cohabiting with people outside of their family.
Yeah, very true.
I really hate, I want to say his name's Oslo. That's not it. Othello? No. Otho. Otho?
Yeah, you already said his name correctly earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, I couldn't remember it once I said it.
The interior designer / medium
yes, yeah.
guy.
Man of many
talents.
talents.
What an odd character.
That's my issue with him, is he's just like, oh, I'm good at this. I'm good at, oh, you need that? I'm good at that, actually. It's like, I feel like if they said, oh, we've got a leak, he'd be like, I can plumb. I'll do some plumbing.
To be fair, there are dickheads like that in the world, so I think he's actually quite representative.
That's what I thought. I did quite enjoy that element of his character because I liked even visually just his appearance. I don't know what the joke was when he like redressed him at the end. Is it meant to be that he was like...
It was it was a suit that was like very, very ugly. So it's like he wouldn't be caught dead in something like that. But I did really enjoy that, the flick, and then it rips off and he's like, oh my God, like it's so ugly. I thought that was very funny.
And just, the visual aesthetics before that, just the sort of balance of the black and red and just like how sort of like neat his hair was. I thought his, I really enjoyed his performance. Yeah, it was a bit of a stretch to be like, oh, I also do this. But then like Craig said, there are people like that who'll be like, oh, well, I have also done this.
And to be fair, he just sort of lucked out by the fact that Ghost just left the book that explained everything around. Yeah. So it wasn't like he was good at medium. He was just like, I'm just going to read.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed...
He's not like... He was interior designing, but he wasn't doing... He was just going around and saying to her, like, you're reading my mind. What am I thinking? And then just she's saying it, and he's like, yes. It's just a scam.
Yeah, he is kind of like a used car salesman kind of character in a way.
Yeah, so maybe he's that, because, I mean, that's what a lot of mediums are as well. It just happened to work because
it makes sense.
The ridiculous rules of the universe that they're in.
Yeah, and just every now and then spray can like an X on a random wall. Oh, we could go this color. I'm pretty sure it was just the same color in every room that he spray paint.
Yeah, that textured wall that Lucy was on about.
And the fact that he found the book very much speaks to what you were saying, Shelley, of like, a lot of mediums can be con artists. You can imagine him doing that of like, oh, did your relative really like cars? Finds like model car in the corner, etc.
Hey, where are you going?
Let's wrap this up then and go to now our final section, which is the movie vault. To ask, should Beetlejuice be remembered for all time, and give our last thoughts on the film. So, Lucy, we'll go to you first. What do you think? Should Beetlejuice go into our movie vault?
I think because it's like, it is just an iconic film, and it did really shape this sort of like genre of like horror comedies. Like it's so aesthetically iconic. Like, I could show someone pretty much any clip from that film and they'd be like, oh, that's Beetlejuice. Even like a screenshot, like a screen grab from that film, they'd be like, yeah, that's Beetlejuice. Like I think it does deserve to be in the vault, but I would argue it's probably one of the few Tim Burtons that is good. And I don't think that's to do with him being involved in it. I think that's other people who are better than him. But I don't think we should punish the film just because Tim Burton is attached. I think it should go in the vault.
It's very much that encouragement, isn't it? Like Shelley was saying, with like, it goes through the entire crew. It's just that concept or the idea bleeds through to then, Danny Elfman's music and the costume designer, that everyone is kind of like influenced by it. So as you were saying with his visuals, he's so good with those visuals that I guess that kind of inspires everyone else to be on their top form, which is obviously something that didn't happen with Morbius. But Shelley, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree. I would say it's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Tim Burton vehicles. I won't say film because he attaches his name. We've been through all that. Yeah. And also, I feel like you could show a picture of Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice to someone who'd never even seen the film and they'd go, oh, that's Beetlejuice. So I think it's iconic in that way, just of its visuals, and I really enjoy it as a film, despite all of its kind of shortcomings in terms of the world rules and the gropiness. I still think it's very indicative of its time and starting that kind of, let's see the humor in the darkness side of things, because I think the 70s was very much the dark side of humanity. Well, let's see the dark side of the other side in this one. And I think it was one of the sort of pioneering films while still continuing that B-movie vibe.
Do you both think it's a good Halloween film? Like, would it be one you would go to, or would you be more your sort of jump scare, like, oh my God, or would it be just a part of a kind of October kind of collection?
I go for a mix of both, really. So I'll have... Sorry, Lucy's cat is just like loving on her, and I'm loving on it. Oh, yeah, it would be part of my kind of, if I had to pick like 31 films to watch each day in October, it would definitely be in there, no doubt.
I agree.
Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't hate this film, so I feel like by sheer virtue of that, I mean, I actually did enjoy the film. I feel like elements that bothered other people, as much as they are, elements that I would not expect in, a decent human being. I think in a sort of horror ghost element that even like a receptionist in the underworld would be like, he's a bad egg. I kind of just sort of accept it being there. And there's also just, I'm going to use my sort of defense of just, if it were made now, I'd have like a bit more concern. But at the time, I'm just like, I just overlook it to the point of it didn't bother me as much. Because I guess it was just like the character was like the point.
I have to agree.
And every character does call him out on it.
Oh yeah, there's nobody who's just like that Beetlejuice. What a guy!
Oh,
what a guy!
That's just him.
Oh, he's a character.
I've got a question for Craig.
Yeah.
What do you think this has over other Tim Burton films?
Fun. It has fun. Like, that's the problem. I feel like Tim Burton is the kind of director that tries a lot to do sort of very emotionally driven stories. And I think a lot, because I think this is the defense that was given to why Edward Scissorhands is in the movie vault, despite the fact that I said I don't think it should be, is the idea that he tries to go for a lot of development of very lonely characters and sort of building up those emotional stories. And for me, that's where that just doesn't work. Just because I think in some situations it takes itself so seriously that everything just feels so goddamn bleak. Here, however, I think that while you do have a lot of sort of bleak elements, they contrasted quite well with the idea of just, we're going to take everything so lightheartedly, that actually it comes off as a lot easier to enjoy and sort of just get through. So even though there are some like relatively horrific things in this film, the fact that they're not dwelled on means that you can sort of have fun with it. And I think that's what a lot of Tim Burton films need to do and often just sort of don't, right? That's why I even think like the defense of like Dark Shadows being from a bad soap opera turned into a film doesn't work, because it doesn't translating those elements sort of like for like. So the point of it doesn't actually embrace any more of those campiness. So it feels like it's trying to take itself seriously. That's why you literally have the awful line of "I'm a werewolf, woof woof," said in the way that it is. So dry, deadpan, doesn't work. This, I think, actually enjoys itself to the point of I actually give this film credit as like a Tim Burton film. So I think it should go in.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting, like I said, with that drama stuff, because again, I can't remember what I said with the Edward Scissorhands one, but I think for me, I don't exactly get a kick out of that stuff, but I can watch it and go, okay, I can see how that's appealing to a certain type of audience. But for me, I see there then the chaoticness that you see here in moments like the neighborhood and the wives who, again, their hair cut by Edward, and you got a lot of the visuals there, etc. Whereas I think in this film, that kind of, you don't have that balance as much of the crazy kookiness balanced with then drama. There's always that chaotic element to Tim Burton, and I think that while that is what attracts me to something like Edward Scissorhands and a lot of the visuals and some of the drama, more in terms of, like Shelley was saying earlier, like things like the music and the visuals, whereas I think story-wise, it's not all that, reinvents the wheel. Whereas I think it's interesting here because it just purely embraces that, and it's only about that, which is obviously why, Craig has said there that he enjoys that more, and a lot of you guys have said that as well. And I think because it is purely just a comedy, much like something like Mars Attacks, as I mentioned earlier, it kind of works in that way. And like Lucy said, I think the visuals are so embedded in people's brains. I think that while we don't always give credit for things that have just become popular because of their achievements, I think that it is backed up by still a good story and good performances. The fact that you can watch this, and even though you kind of go, oh yeah, that's the moment that everyone like quotes and the moment you always see, but there's still those jokes like with the football players and the smoking and the ghosts that you still get a lot more out of it than just the kind of like pop culture famous stuff. So yeah, into the movie vault then goes Beetlejuice from 1988 as our film to sort of represent this year's Halloween special.
Okay, Endgame time. So this is a game that I like to call I Summon You Forth. So obviously one of the factors of this film that we didn't really talk about, we joked about it at the beginning, was obviously how you summon forth Beetlejuice is you say his name 3 times. And it got me thinking, it might be interesting to go through a variety of different films, and if they had to have a method of summoning a character, how it is that we could implement that into the film. So that's what this game is going to be all about. There's going to be 5 rounds, and the idea is I'm going to give you a choice of 5 films. You can choose one of the 5 films from each of the ones that I give you, and I want you to choose a character in that film if you happen to know it. If you don't know any of the 5 films, then I don't understand. But you have to choose one of the characters and how you'd summon them forth, and I want you to come up with a method of how you'd summon them. So whether that would be like a couple of phrases, whether that would be like a particular sort of strategy or method. There are some obviously rules to this. So rule number 1, you can't just be like, you'd say their name 3 times. So if it's done in Beetlejuice, can't do it here. We don't like people being derivative. Rule number 2, you can't just do the very basic, like, for example, say you wanted to summon David, you can't just go, "Oi, Dave, come here." Right? You need to put some creativity into this. Those are the only 2 rules. Bar that, you can do whatever you want. So the way this will work is that David and I will give you independent scores. So we'll be scoring you on 3 things: originality, effectiveness, and performance. So when we say performance, in the event that you want to give us a demonstration of the summoning of this character within your film, go for that and we can give you a score. And basically, David and I will score each of you per round up to 5 each. So each round is out of 10. The player who has the highest score at the end is the winner. Everyone clear on the rules?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Before we get into the game, it's always good to have an idea of what it is we're going to be playing for. So as with every other episode, we're going to hear the hints of what films could be coming up, and we'll start with, as always, the host choice. So David, what are you playing for?
So usually with our choices, then I usually just try to persuade people or give them, a bit of a tease, make them like think, oh, well, what is that film? And, that sounds like a fun one, etc. But this is more of a call to arms. I'm like, this is happening between, Halloween and Christmas. There is only one choice that we can go for. So it's a call of arms, guys, to go from this film from 1993. I think it would just be perfect. After what we've talked about, I think everything that any other hints I would give would just be obvious what it is. But, it's very linked to the visuals and the creatives.
Okay, so that is what the hosts are putting up for grabs for this episode. Shelley, what film are you vying for?
I am playing for a 2014 film similar to something else that we've mentioned in this episode.
Okay, excellent. Finally, Lucy, what would you like to put forward?
A film that stars Demi Moore.
Okay, excellent.
That's what you're getting.
That's fine. Sometimes less is more. Demi Moore, some would say. Okay, then. So, like I said, I'm going to give you... So, there are 5 rounds, and each round I'm going to give you a different set of 5 films. So, let's start with the first 5 films. Are we ready? So we have The Lawnmower Man, The Emperor's New Groove, 10 Things I Hate About You, 50 First Dates, Love, Rosie. So choose one of those films and think about a character you would like to summon and how you do it. Each round you will have a minute to think, so your time starts now. Okay, then. So what I want you to do is when I ask you to, I want you to say what film you've chosen, which character you've chosen, and then just talk us through your method. So we'll start with Lucy.
I chose Emperor's New Groove, and I chose Yzma.
Yep.
And the method is you get one of the peasants, you slit their throat, and then all the blood spews out, and then you write Yzma's name in it, and then she comes out of blood.
I mean, I just love David's reaction then. I just saw it from the corner of my eye. He literally just went like, ah!
Yeah. I was like, oh, yay, Emperor's New Groove, Disney film. Oh my God, the slitting throats.
Okay, so a good old goat sacrifice to the devil, except it's a peasant in Yzma.
Llama sacrifice.
Okay. Shelley.
So I obviously had to go for 50 First Dates.
Yep.
And the character I chose is the I don't know the character's name, but it's the big guy who works at the cafe, the one who keeps threatening him with the butcher's knife. And to summon him, you would have to play at least a 30-second ukulele solo. Yeah, so that's mine.
Okay. Excellent.
Two very different approaches.
Do we have to do a demonstration? Because I want to see Lucy.
Have you got a ukulele? Is there a peasant in there?
Yeah, so I mean the demonstration.
I've got to be a peasant.
Yeah, so I mean the demonstration is only if you can do something like that. So David, talk us through your score for Lucy.
So it's definitely unique in the sense that I just don't know if it's like as linked to Yzma as I would have liked to, but it's very psychotic. So I have to give it points for that.
Peasant.
True.
Poor
but
people.
But then Yzma's all about like potions and turning into animals and stuff. I thought it was going to be something about that. So I don't know. I would give. I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay. So just talking through my score, I would also give it a 3. I think part of this is that I think the image of it is quite creative. However, obviously as part of the performance score, there wasn't anything that we could like grade you on specifically for that. And I think as well, I mean, it's just true, right? You joke about having a peasant, you don't get them for us. But also, Jess, I think like the creativity insofar as like the context is definitely true. I think like David says, I would have liked to see it go further. Okay, so with 50 First Dates, I'm going to start this time. So for Shelley, I also award a 3. Same sort of logic insofar as like you chose a method which I think is unique, and I don't think many people associate the ukulele with summoning necessarily. But again, just at the point where you're not able to show us how that might look like, or even just talk us through what the melodies might look like, I just have to bump you down a little bit. But I still like the idea of it as like a unique concept. So David, what would you score Shelley?
I was thinking the same, and I'll stick with it because I think it'll help in terms of like the first round again, maybe to sort of like in terms of how we go forward, maybe in terms of changing things up. So I think that, I like the fact that it's linked more to the character, but I would have liked maybe a song or something, some idea of like what it was specifically that we hear.
So at the end of round 1, both contestants scored 6. I mean, it's a solid start. You just aim to go up. So, are we ready for the next set of 5?
Yeah.
So this time you can choose between The Benchwarmers, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Disney's Dinosaur, and The Nightmare Before Christmas. And you have another minute to decide now.
Oh God, she's going to get props, isn't she?
Wow.
Oh no.
I think she took the comment about the peasants quite personally. You always just slit their throat. I'll slit their Okay, so this time we'll start with Shelley.
Oh no. I was looking to see if I had any video effects I could put on.
Okay.
So basically, I've chosen Fellowship of the Ring.
Yep.
To summon Galadriel, you have to do an inverted video of yourself with a really, really bad, like demon voice, going, "I'll summon in place of." I don't know. I need a queen. But there's no visual effects. So
Zoom let you down.
Yeah, Zoom let me down.
Okay. Okay, interesting start. Lucy.
I chose Nightmare Before Christmas and is Jack Skeleton.
Yep.
And to summon him, you have to get 3 pumpkins.
Okay.
There's 3. And you have to hold them all, and it has to be Halloween.
Yep.
And you have to sing a song. You have to sing, Halloween, Halloween. I've got 3 pumpkins, now here's Jack.
Oh, I'm gonna lose.
And I've got 3 pumpkins. Can someone take a screenshot, please? I need everyone to know that I've got 3 pumpkins.
Yeah, wait, keep talking.
I grew these in my garden. That's
Well, you actually grew them.
Bonus points.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would sing a little song for old Skeleton Jack.
Okay.
It has to be on Halloween, otherwise it won't work.
Excellent. Okay, so David, let's start with Shelley then.
There was something really funny about this the other day, actually, where like that Lord of the Rings show has just ended, and people were just saying about how you would use that effect or something like that. They were just saying, "Oh, I love like how this storyline is taking place in the TV show, and like that translates to like she becomes inverted." It was some fun commentary on it, so it was kind of like well timed in that sense that I've still got that in my mind, especially from that show. And I do love that moment. Like, I will be a queen. So I think the easy option would have been to go for something like Gollum or something like that. So I'm going to go for a 4 just because I think it has that extra flair to it of the visual aspect and not just, you haven't gone for the typical, Ring or Gollum or something.
How cool would it have been if I had found an inversion and just done it?
Yeah, and if you had done it like as you just said the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would have had a big impact for me. I'm going to be the slightly harsher one. I'm going for a 3 again. I think the creativity is definitely more there, but I think the performance was affected by technology letting you down. So I think you could have been really, really bold with the choice of wording you go for when like I shall be a queen stuff at the end. But because you were just flummoxed by Zoom not giving you that option, I think
I panicked.
You talked us through a little bit. So I think it's still just a 3 for 3, but I still think it's a very good round.
Thank you.
Okay, coming on to Lucy then and Jack Skellington. So, I mean, you had the pumpkins, you brought them to us.
Sang the song.
You sang the song. I think the song has that right level of charm of some would call it lazily written. I think it is.
I knew I'd sing. I didn't know what I was going to sing. I just opened my mouth. That's what came out.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what it was.
I think for that,
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that justification has bumped it to a 4 for me. So David.
What I loved about it is because when you came on, I was like, oh, I'm not going to give bonus points for like having the pumpkins. It's too unfair, So at that stage, I was like, it's cool, I appreciate it. But the song is what give it the flair, I think. And what's even better is, it's Jack Skeleton, but he's the Pumpkin King. So I appreciate that connection. But also, you could have gone, this is Halloween or something. But no, you went original. You went with your own
Halloween. I've got 3 pumpkins here. Now here's Jack.
And I want to hear kids throughout the land singing that every Halloween. So I'm going a full 5-star. Why not?
So I'm just adding up the scores as we go along. So still everything to play for, but at the end of round 2, the scores are Shelley has 13, Lucy has 15.
Oh.
But there's still 3 rounds to go. So set number 3, we've got Connie, Dodgeball, Saving Private Ryan, Mulan, and 300. Okay, so starting with Lucy.
I picked Mulan, and I picked the Nan from Mulan. And to summon her, you have to get a necklace made of beads of jade for beauty. and you put that on, and then you go in the garden, you go find a cricket for luck, and then you take the cricket, then you you eat the cricket, and then you make yourself sick, and then the sick, it turns into the nan.
What an image.
Okay, wonderful. Shelley, what did you go for?
I chose dodgeball, Patches O'Houlihan, the coach. And to summon him, you have to do your best hand modeling, because he used to be a hand model. And you have to go dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge. That's me hand modeling. And then he appears. Throws balls at you.
Okay, excellent. So we'll start with Lucy, with the summoning the nan from Mulan by vomiting up a cricket.
A cricket just for luck, and you've got to wear beads of jade for beauty.
Okay. David, I think you might have the same comment as me, but let's see if you make it.
I don't know. I'm trying to think whether that is each element that the nan gives her in the song.
There's a third element that wasn't addressed.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, there seems to be something missing. So I think possibly would have been extra points if there was that element. I can't think what it is. But also just, I think the Yzma one worked in the sense I could imagine this like blood going into the shape of Yzma, but imagine vomit going into the shape of this like dumpy old woman.
I pictured that more readily, to be honest.
I don't know. It's just an unpleasant. But I can imagine Yzma being in blood, and then like you're like, oh my god, this evil villain's arriving, and then she does. Whereas something in vomit, I'm like, ooh, I don't want to see what comes from this. So I'm gonna go with a 3 on that one. Original, but not quite there.
Yeah. So for me, it was two things. One, it was the fact that there was one more element. It's whatever's in between the beads of jade for beauty. It's whatever comes next, and then there's the cricket.
I know what comes next.
Okay.
Beads of jade for beauty, you must proudly show.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Now add a cricket
Okay.
just for luck. So there's no physical element that I could have added. I will take that extra point now, David. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you'll take it from me, because in that case, I'm going to give it a 4. I think the only other concern I have is the implication of Mulan's nan actually just being like a weird demon cricket in human form.
I think it was just because I felt this still should be like, even like that cricket's in the little cage thing. I felt this should have been like a 3rd. All things, come in 3s in those like spell things.
Yeah. So to go on then to
The
Shelley.
vomit is the 3rd.
Yeah, I was going to say.
To move on to Shelley and Dodgeball, I think a really great premise, and I think really sold it with the performance. I think the hand modeling, if this were possible to summon him, I think would have summoned him. That demonstration maybe not as good as when you actually did do it, but because I think there was a fluency to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed the performance. I think if you had given a little bit of a descriptor as to exactly how that might work and like how it actually summons him, I would give you a full 5 points. So for me, it's a very solid 4.
Yeah, I think I'll also go for 4, because I think it's very simple in its approach, but it works because it's so tied to the character, and it's something you could just imagine being done. And it's kind of like the Beetlejuice thing. Like, it could easily be done. Somebody would be like, oh, don't wave your hand around like that. And then like, oh no. So yeah, 4 points.
So it's now, there's a 1 point difference. Lucy with 22 and Shelley with 21. So still everything to play for with the next 2 rounds. Group number 4. We've got Troy, Tropic Thunder, Wanted, Hot Fuzz, and Borat. Okay, so Shelley, talk us through your film.
So, oh God, I did not think of a character.
I mean, which film? Wait, so you've got a summoning method for one of the films, but you don't know who you're summoning.
The cast.
Let's go for, so it's Hot Fuzz. Let's go for the woman who works in the pub. You know, the one whose age they get wrong.
Yeah.
You said she's 54, and actually I'm 53. where she's, her hair goes like that when she's doing the machine gun. So to summon her, you have to eat a classic cornetto in under a minute, and the power of the brain freeze will just like emanate out from you. Like the pain will turn into what old bitch.
Okay, interesting.
I just was picturing the method and didn't come up with it.
And yet you still managed to come up with an incredibly obscure character from that film.
Oh, she's the best. Like the way her hair moves when she's firing that gun stays with me.
We're just imagining the thought process at the moment. You must have just been like, yeah, the cornetto brain freeze. Which cornetto? Oh, I haven't had cornettos in a while. Mint cornetto.
Which cornetto was which film? Has to be the classic vanilla cornetto, otherwise it will not work.
Excellent. Okay.
And you have to picture the hair. I'm adding things to it now. Please give me 5 points, someone.
Lucy, what did you go for?
I can't remember the character's name, but it's Angelina Jolie's character in Wanted. I want to say Sloane.
Yeah, I think some. Yeah,
something like that. So what you gotta do, right? It's quite simple, right? Stay with me on this one. So you get a gun, okay? And you take the gun, right? And then you shoot it like that. You go like flick your arm, and then what happens is if you flick your arm fast enough, the bullet will go round in a circle. So what you've got to do then is duck, because she doesn't duck in the film, and that's why she dies. And I was screaming, Angie, duck, because I love Angie. So then you duck, so the bullet doesn't hit you. So then it just keeps going round and round and round and round in a circle until it spins so fast it creates a void, a vortex, and then out of that vortex pops an Angelina Jolie as that character, and then you have a gun shootout with her, as is tradition.
Oh, nice! So you've even got a purpose for why you've summoned her. Okay.
I mean, you could have just combined them both. You could have just been like, you get a gun and you just throw that away and then eat a cornetto and then you be sick and then Angelina Jolie comes from the vomit.
I think you just summoned someone with your vape then. It filled the screen and then you appear.
You missed an opportunity there to do the visuals.
Oh, I mean, there's still one more round.
Yeah, so. Nah, they've given it away now.
Okay, so let's start with the scoring for Shelley then. So David, this is the you eat a vanilla cornetto and you summon the
in under a minute.
Pub landlady in under a minute.
I think the most effective part of it was the brain freeze bit. I think the cornetto, well, like I said, that's clever in what we've previously had in There's Something Linked, not immediately obvious, but I think the brain freeze thing, there was just enough like imagery there that I was kind of like, yeah, I can visualize this, I can see it. Obviously the hair shake thing was a good aspect to have, so yeah, I'll give it a 4 for some strong imagery I was getting from that one.
Yeah, for me, I think the main thing that I needed then, because I think the summoning method is very strong. For me, it's just a connection to why specifically that character.
Yeah.
So I would also give it a 4. Coming on then to the summoning method for Angelina Jolie's character in Wanted. So I really like this as a concept. I think like the idea of like the spiraling and sort of like the weird vortex void thing, just because of the method, which the gun obviously being pivotal to how the world of Wanted works. I thought it was like excellently explained. Obviously, it's one of those things that's hard to demonstrate, and I think you put a lot of actions into like the hand gestures, which I think did a lot. Not quite a 5 for me, so I think I'm going to have to give that one a 4 as well.
Yeah, I think I think for me, I won't go as high as a 4. I think I'll go for a 3 because I like the idea, I like the concept, and I thought the vortex thing, once you said that, I was like, oh, that's cool, and just the imagery you created there. But I think again, it was just like, because it was the bullet thing, which is linked to the film, like Shelley chose was something linked to her film. But I don't know, I just, because it was Angelina Jolie, I wanted something, it could have been something more like glamorous or something very like polar opposite in that way. So I think that it was kind of like the route I expected, and that bit of creativity, so it got that 3 stars.
So that means going into the final round, you're on equal points with both.
Look how that worked out.
So both of you have scored 20.
Lost respect for you, David.
I didn't. I'm not good at maths. I didn't know that.
To give that a 4.
He gave you a higher score in that round. Why did you? It's just like
because Lucy's better at this.
I'm not good at maths. I didn't know that.
So what we're going to do for a little bit of suspense for the last round is we're not going to tell you the scores. I'm going to get David to write his down. I'll write mine down, add it up, and then we'll go through and then we'll look at the final scores. Okay?
This is too tense. I can't take that.
So the final 5 films you have are Alita: Battle Angel, Princess Bride, Independence Day, Deep Impact, and Avengers Endgame. So, David, who would you like to hear first?
I think Lucy, just because we hear from Shelley last.
Okay, go for it, Lucy.
Okay. I went with Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
And the character I went with, I'm going to explain. I'm just going to explain you through it. So you know the bit where it's like, oh no, all hope is lost, and then it's like on your left, and then the portal opens and it's like, oh shit, and there's like on your right, on your left, and then it keeps going. Then it would be like, oh no, she's yeah, and then a big portal would open in the sky, and then I would just drop out of it. I've written myself into Endgame. So now I'm there, right? And I just start running at Thanos because I'm like, I'm not taking any shit. So I just run at Thanos, like on my handbag, and I just start whacking him with my handbag. And he's like, no, please. And I'm like, don't mess with me. I'm from Newport. And then I kill Thanos, and then everyone's like, yay, well done, Lucy. And I'm like, you're welcome, guys. And then I go home, back through the same portal.
Okay.
So we have a revisionist
Beautiful.
take of Avengers Endgame to start off with.
Better.
I concede.
Better. Vision.
I mean, we will see.
Is it like, is the portal called like the Wookiee hole?
No, the Wookiee hole is where the Wookiees come from. This is the Lucy hole, where the Lucy's come from.
The fur hole.
Shelley, talk us through your vision.
So you weren't to know this, but Deep Impact is probably the film that I have shed the most tears over in my life. Like, I've watched it so many times, and there's one bit that always makes me cry. So I would probably revise this bit of the film. So there's a bit where, you know, the guy whose visor doesn't work and he looks directly into the sun and gets blinded. And then he has to say goodbye to his son, who he's literally never seen. So for his son back on Earth when he's older to summon his dad, he has to get that little rocket toy that he has and put like an umbrella over it so it's shaded from the sun. And then he has to go, that's a mighty fine dad I've got there, Oren, because his name's Oren. And yeah, and then I won't cry until like there's no moisture left in my body.
Interesting. Very different
Just
takes.
to bring the mood down.
Yeah, we've gone for the emotional and the chaotic.
So now we're just going to do our independent scorings. Just show them to me and I'll put them in.
Will it help my score if I show you a tit?
I think based off what I said earlier was like, I'm not giving points for the pumpkins, so I think
again, no points for your pumpkins.
Yeah, I also cannot be swayed like that.
Shelley, whoever wins, I think we should remain friends. I don't think we should let this come between us.
No.
I feel like we're at the last stage of the like Halloween beauty pageant.
if you made it through the Valentine's gobble win, you can get through anything.
Gobble gobble. What? That still lives rent free in my brain. It's turkey time.
So one of you scored 36 and the other one scored 38. So the winner of this end game, Shelley.
What? Oh my god!
I love the reaction there. Like Shelley was going to react. It was just like understandable. It was just, wait, what?
No. As we're so much more creative.
Yeah, so the score was me. It was because the scenario was great, but it wasn't a summoning method. It was a really good story about a character who's been summoned to what they would do. But the description was just a hole in the sky, and then I plopped through.
I would watch it.
Sorry, the summoning methods in the deleted scenes, you have to get Disney Plus to see those.
Okay, so obviously this is your first time winning an Endgame with our new format, which means that you now get to decide the film that we discuss in next week's episode. So you can choose the film that you've gone for. You can choose the film that Lucy suggested. You can choose the film that we suggested. So you don't have to go with yours. You can pick any of them. However,
do I have to guess them?
No. It's not a case you have to guess them. You have to go based on the description if you want it to be discussed or not. We can't tell you what it is until you've chosen.
Oh, right. Well, I think Lucy's is The Scarlet Letter, which I do love because I love Easy A, and they talk about it in that. I don't know what yours is. Yours is probably...
No, I didn't mean... No, did I mean The Scarlet Letter?
Oh, God. I think we have to force just
Okay, I pick yours. I don't know who I'm pointing at. David and Craig.
Okay. So we're going for the host choice. So talk us through what I can almost guess it's going to be.
Is Nightmare Before Christmas, which is 1993's Tim Burton. So. But we do have a Nightmare Before Christmas fan on the next episode, just saying.
Okay, that's fine then.
So David, for those at home who want to watch along as we talk about the Nightmare Before Christmas, where can they find it?
You can catch it, of course, on Disney Plus, along with Virgin Media if you have a subscription to their Virgin Media Go service. And you can also rent it on places like Apple, Amazon, etc., or physical media, as we've said before. It's out on Blu-ray, DVD. But Disney Plus is probably one of the most likely places to catch it on streaming.
Welcome to an extraordinary world filled with magic and wonder. Open your mind and let yourself go to a place where every day is Halloween and every night Jack Skellington,
I am the Pumpkin King,
dreams of something different.
What is this? It's someplace new.
Jack, look out!
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere.
So yeah, go check out Nightmare Before Christmas if you want to watch along with us, if you want to get ready for next episode and join in our discussion. That is the film we'll be talking about in next time's episode. Anything lastly from yourself, Craig?
So we're still in the midst of planning our Endgame special. One thing we've decided we want to do this time is we want it to be for a good cause. We haven't decided exactly which charity or charities we want to donate to yet. We have decided a rough theme of what we want those charitable donations to be focused towards. And we feel that in honor of several of our guests who have had a deep connection with animals and their pets, including the two that we have in front of us, to the point of their cats literally have joined us throughout various points of this recording. We've decided we would like to donate towards animal charities specifically. So we haven't decided which ones they would necessarily be. We don't want to donate to just a specific one animal. We would like it to try and go to as broad a base as possible. So if you at home have any suggestions of who we could potentially look at, please send us those suggestions and we will highly consider them. This is something that we generally want to do. I mean, the amount of animals that we sort of have owned in our respective lives as well, and just means a lot to a lot of people. That's something we would like to support.
And a bit of a tease to the theming of that episode as well. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun one again. Lucy and Shelley have been on our Endgame special, so they know the chaos that's involved in being in a giant version of that Endgame challenge. And yeah, obviously a great chance to raise money at the end of the year for very deserving charities. So now for where we can catch you guys. So Shelley, Lucy, tell us all about your socials and any projects you got going on. Shelley, yourself, where can people go to find you?
I pretty much put everything on Instagram at knitwear cat hair. Yeah. everything's kind of linked from there, really. It's the kind of hub.
Go see all the preparation for the musicals and stuff that have happened and will be happening, I'm sure. And Lucy?
I don't do anything anymore, literally.
Your house. We'll go visit your house once it's decorated.
Yeah.
Lucy's pumpkin patch.
I'm doing my house there. I'm growing pumpkins. I'm transitioning. Like, my life's pretty chill and boring. I haven't really got anything. Like, if you want to find me on the internet, don't. I'm not on there anymore. Go away. Why are you trying to find me, weirdos? Just trying to live a quiet life. Leave me alone.
Fair enough. Okay, well, go catch Lucy on our previous episodes as well. So, yeah, thank you very much for both joining us. It's been a mad and fun episode, as always, when you're both on, and we hope you can join us again in the new year. Maybe we'll have an anniversary of the Valentines, though I'm sure you're probably getting PTSD of those bad films again. Happy Halloween, everyone, as well. I hope you've had a good October. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one where we're talking all about Nightmare Before Christmas. Special shout out as well to at the top of the episode with that fantastic Van Helsing Dracula impression from our previous guest, Kyle Sean Thomas. He is a part of a band called Crypt Rot, which is a metal band which has just released a new album. You can find them over on Instagram as well at Crypt Rot Band. So go check them out. And thank you once again, Kyle, for providing all of our Halloween intros. They've been very fun. Everything from Saw to Pennywise to now Dracula this week, which I'm sure that Craig was loving revisiting that film in some way or form. So, yeah, happy Halloween, everyone. Thank you, Shelley and Lucy, once again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Happy Halloween.
See ya.
Thanks for having us.
To keep up with the latest episodes of Well Good Movies, you can listen to us on all your usual podcast outlets, including Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and rate us where you can to keep our podcast growing. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Well Good Movies to keep up with the latest news and highlights from all our episodes, as well as tell us what movies you want to be discussed in the future. And if all of that isn't enough, you can also find us at our website, freshtakehub.com/wellgoodmovies, where you can catch all our episodes along with videos and articles deep diving into the worlds of film and television. So what are you waiting for? Go check out the film we'll be discussing in next time's episode.